overviews of systems. There were like in Southern Australia and such. Those were consortia. Those were independent libraries moving into a consortial environment.
Well, a statewide system, I mean, so a system is a library service that's operated by one entity. And so here I think maybe is it being operated by the state, each of the local governments pitches in a way, whereas a consortia is a group of independent libraries. So depending on how you use the term, yeah, but they're moving into a shared system.
So yeah, so I think when you look at it from the challenge of seeing on a single platform and the technology, it's great to think like, oh, they got there. I'm trying to think of what is the climate that promotes that allows that to happen. I think that's something that I would like to hear more about if you know what makes that possible. Because I think, you know, you said in the States, and I would say here in Illinois, we have our consortia, but there's a lot of independence too, and there's a lot of library directors, I'll say, that really fiercely stake out that they want to be independent and they want to have control of their system, despite all the benefits of maybe being in the consortia for their business.
Yeah, so other places, decisions can be made top down and grassroots up, right? And in South Australia, I think it was a mixture of that. You know, each of the councils had to opt into it. They had to agree to it. Some money came from there, some other came from the state. But to the degree that a lot of money for automation systems is divvied out by, you know, through LSTA money, through state grants, you know, when you dole that money out, you want it to be used most efficiently. So you could say, well, you know, do we want to finance 60 redundant systems, or do we want to build one big system? So the politics of doing that are probably much more difficult than I would ever know.
In some states, it's been largely financial coercion, and the outcome has not been bad at all. But, you know, if the state legislature says we're going to give you a chunk of money, and it's going to be used for a system, and then they'll say, oh, it's opt-in. But by the way, we'll be calling your university president and telling them what a waste of money it would be if you didn't join. And, you know, nobody likes it if it's there.
Yeah, I mean, the change is hard.
It's really done well.
But when you think of the aggregate cost involved, does it make sense for libraries to each spend their money and the parent organization's money, you know, replicating things that would be shared? I mean, libraries have sharing built in their DNA, except for consistent. And why do we start out that and not other things? You know, I think that we have built expectations from the past of what it means to share it on. Right? Like you share infrastructure, you lose control. You can't have local policy. You know? Maybe that's even true to a certain extent. But it also means that, you know, by sharing systems, I can spend less on the plumbing and spend more money on things I really care about. Well, if you're willing to invest all of your technology money into an iOS system that does your 1990s, you don't have anything left over to do your 2015.
I think you're preaching to the choir in this room.
Yeah.
Most of us are involved in systems like that. It would be interesting to hear the staunch sort of stand apart.
Yeah, well, I mean, I can give you some devil's advocate points, although I do consider myself in the choir, but, but just for a start, just because something is infinitely scalable doesn't necessarily mean that it should be. There can be efficiencies of use if the result sets are too large, the drop downs are too large, that can be counterproductive, and there are ways to manage it. If delivery is more efficient when it's more localized, you know, that's something to take into consideration. Is it really efficient for somebody in Chicago to get their book from Carbondale? And I know there are ways to deal with that too. Management, you know, managing a much larger scale operation can be more complex. And finally, there's just a visceral feeling sometimes of local responsiveness being preferable to centralized responsiveness. So again, I'm not saying those are my personal convincing arguments, but just for what some of the
I think those are good points. I think those are questions that have to be answered. So if we can't come up with good answers to those, then it's probably not a good solution.
And there's also the wellness workers law that you said.
Question related to that, can you address how these very large consortia are balancing the needs of the larger libraries and generally more interested in cutting edge technologies and services versus small libraries that are struggling to have basic 1990s functionality?
So it seems like once you're kind of in this milieu of a shared system, you have the ability to offer large and small a certain set of things. And you shouldn't have to limit what you offer to the whole based on the needs of, say, Boston Public versus Chicago Public at the right state here. You know, I think, you know, residents throughout the state would enjoy some of those things. So you don't want to water it down so that it's just a mediocre service. But the other side of it is that you're able to offer someone who lives in a very small community the same kind of services that they would have if they were in New York City. And, you know, there's a lot of details in it, but I think that's kind of what you're hoping to accomplish. Are there things that beyond a shared system that the municipal system might want to do also? No problem. But is it part of that shared infrastructure that is, maybe a library system or its next generation version? It's probably things on top.
Or, of course, the administration and governance issues, I agree with you that that's what you like to see equal services offered to Illinois Haven. But my experience has been that the larger libraries are interested in, introducing new services, certainly faster than smaller libraries, and given the realities of limited system staff. And the fact that these libraries are funding the majority of the system, how is that balanced out?
So the thing, one of the things I'm looking at is I would say the librarians in the large institutions are more interested in staying in libraries than small ones. But I don't think that reflects, the residents. I think they have similar expectations. They all live in a world, that is a lot better when it comes to technology. In a city or a country, you're still on Facebook and expect, broadband access and maybe places where you don't. But I would say patron expectations are probably largely the same. The expectations of librarians and general libraries are different, but the resources is quite different. But I would say so much of this is what you get access to via the web, in addition to this very small collection that might be in this library that's run by part-timers here. So I hope it all, a lot of it's very passion.
I would agree with that. Even within the city of Chicago, there are certain neighborhoods that are much more demanding. The public is more demanding, not the librarians, the public is more demanding in what their expectations are. And I think a lot of it has to do with what your shopping experience is online and in the places where you shop. And your expectation level is based entirely upon your own personal experience rather than the whole arena of what's there. If you haven't experienced the range of possibilities, your expectations are adjusted accordingly.
Yeah, it depends on whether your experience of technology is through one of these or through one of those.
Or only through the ones that you get at the library when the library is open and the
That's right.
appointment is available to you.
Right. And all of these are political, not technology issues.
They really are. I don't know how it works sometimes, But it works pretty well. I mean, our consortia has a pretty wide range of, I'd be going to put that up for the range with any other consortia between the University of Illinois and many one-person libraries we have.
I mean, just that.
Yeah, and, I don't know, I mean, maybe Tom wants to talk about it, but the gains are more than, what feels it's lost.
No, like for Carly in particular, do they want to be more like Ohio Link, or do they want to be more like Forbes Cascade the next time around? Or be replaced at some point, so, you know, the decision time, you know, the next decision won't be just what system to get, but what configuration the place to sell it into.
I think one of the things that happens in the public libraries is that the boards, and sometimes the directors feel like this is this local tax money. So we have to keep this local tax money local, you know, rather than more of the public good where you're actually gonna get some benefit too. It's a concept that's
Yeah,
foreign to a lot of.
so, but that's an argument that to do this, you've got to make to the local library board, or whatever it is, control disbursements. By investing in this, we're getting 10 times as much as with our own little system.
Yeah, but I think sometimes what happens though is, even though those are invested in the bigger system, whenever it comes to considering shared policies about how long does a book check out, really? It's like, does it have, can't we all somehow play together on this and no, sometimes we can't, because they're strong, it has a lot to do with strong personalities.
So I think that when you govern one of these things, you can say, well, here's our general policies that, you know, we think will work for almost any of you. And if you want your own policy, well, your buy-in cost is double. Because that's what it's going to cost to actually support you with your own preferences. Because, and I think that's a realistic way to do it too, because, you know, people have to realize the cost of complexity.
These discovery systems also, though, to a certain degree, reveal or expose a little bit of the haves and have-nots. By that, you know, in Swan, we're contending with, you know, a range of libraries, despite if you thought of it as just a metropolitan area, we've got libraries that have a whole suite of electronic databases that they think should be exposed within the catalog along with ebooks. Then they have one library that was really close to closing, and they had a Crador circle to you know, see if they can get funding to remain open, and they're not gonna have these databases. And to say all these databases will be exposed, and that those libraries that are in the have-nots, it's tantalizing to think that they would have access to them, only to be denied at the last moment when their authentication takes place, and they can't get to it.
That's right.
And so this is what I think I'm more serious about. When we talk about this, we already are gonna hit some level of the inequity that just exists in Illinois. Because of
So
our
any
models.
discovery environment is typically profile driven. That as you do discovery, when that, and hopefully it's authenticated earlier on, but even to expose certain content, you've got to be authenticated to know that you're entitled to that content.
Yes.
So, you know, it's not that everything is available to everybody. You have a very large pool of indexed material that's potentially available, but by your library's ownership and subscriptions to content, what should that patron see and access? So that's the detail that's really more complex in discovery environment, is that profile. But they're all built together.
And one of the things that's really wonderful about the new API is that lets UIUC or someplace. Now, there's a lot of things they might want to do that we just have to say, well, you can't do that. You can't get there, it's proprietary, you know. But they can use their own developers and go off and build anything they want, as long as they're in.
And they're the ones that will have resources to work at that API level.
I think, you know, our situation is kind of interesting,
Yeah.
because within Carly, I think, by and large, the University of Illinois is very conscious of trying not to overwhelm the organization in any way, yet at the same time, feels as though there's actually a desire for us. You know, sometimes there's an expectation that we're going to just kind of like, well, Illinois will just do this, or Illinois will do this, or they'll want it, so we'll do it. And on the other hand, there's, you know, we don't want to throw our weight around as an institution within the organization. You know, I think we feel, by and large, we benefit greatly from our membership in Carly. We were just talking about it the other day with respect to the ILS. And the fact that we probably have to hire 5 or 6 other people. We'd have to pay for the hardware, we'd have to pay for the software, we'd have to, there are a whole host of costs that we don't exactly avoid because we pay Carly. But it allows us to focus our time more on, you know, developing things that are more tailored to what we want locally, and we surrender some control in order to gain benefits elsewhere.
It's kind of like personal interaction, you want to show leadership when you can, but you also don't want to dominate.
Yep.
Right? So it's.
There's always a certain amount of, for the good of the all, though, when you join any kind of consortium. I mean, out of the suite of A through Z, you may only want A through M, and others may want the other, but, you know, you at least benefit in that respect, so, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, these things objectively have to offer more, and if they don't, then, you know, why do it?
I'd like to just throw in, like, from our part of the state, from the southern, so in the southern half of the state, for us to even, given the service population and the poverty levels, not that, that there isn't poverty in the rest of the state, but just to be able to bring in a library that maybe serves 500, 950 people and offer them very simple, okay, you can use the module level, that way to describe it, but just very simple modules, and to allow them to bring them into that resource sharing conversation is huge. And that's how I think we are working through that, is that, you know, there's this basic level, like Sam and Carly, maybe on a different scale. But what you offer, we offer is this. If you want something in addition, you're welcome to do that. You know, it's on your own dime. And we will, you know, do whatever we can do to help you, but because we have to bring everybody up to some level, kind of where we're coming from. And it does, in our organization, we have very few large libraries. Students Library is considered one of the large libraries. But it's not in the scale of the state, it's not. But, you know, we have a lot of these much smaller libraries, our medium-sized libraries in our world. And it's an incredible opportunity for these libraries, which we never have. And the economy of scale also brings the cost down. So that's how we're able to do it. I think it's workable. I think it's what you want to give up in exchange. You know,
And one of the things I'd love to mention is, at least for the last 20 years, UIUC has been a net borrower within my share. They're really close now. Equal. But, you know, if you've got a bigger institution with more materials, you've also got more faculty, more graduate students, more demand for everything that's out there, so.
Yeah, I think a huge problem is that for small libraries, we expect them to do all these things out of their own taxes. That's hardly anything.
Yeah.
That means kind of a huge disparity between the haves and have-nots in library systems.
I think there's the issue to some extent. I mean, within Carly, it's not so much of an issue, but we've experienced this within our community. You know, this almost free ridership problem that develops when you bring in the political aspects of the tax money that are supporting these libraries. And we had Urbana and Champaign and Savoy, and they had a disagreement because there was the three communities are adjacent to each other and have, frankly, very very similar or growingly similar bodies of residents that draw largely from the university, but other, other walks of life as well. And one that was perceived as contributing very little to the group, and the other two felt as though they were basically subsidizing this community that refused to pay an equal share in their perception. And it I think, created quite a bit of tension in the communities as these libraries decided to change their relationship.
I noticed that we're at 1 o'clock,
Yes.
so I'm happy to keep talking, but I know you have other agenda items you want to get to as well.
I do want to ask one other question, because this committee has sort of danced around the electronic interlibrary loan question, or the interlibrary loan of e-resources. And I think, when I think about the future and how all, not all, but most print may evolve to be, what does that mean from an interlibrary loan and a resource sharing perspective? And do you have any comments on that?
Well, so it all revolves around your license agreements. You own the materials,
Yeah.
and you're entitled to read them, and you have the technology to tell you if you own it or not, so that you can then establish document delivery or a loan systems that can handle those things according to the business rules. So I think there's a lot of document delivery systems out there used mostly on the academic side.
When I think about the access to the 1 billion or however many print items that OCLC presents to us, and how we don't have to have a license for those individual print, we get it shared with us because of that.
It's a different aspect of the law, copyright versus license.
It'll be sort of basically a little sharing environment unless you're part of the license.
Well, yeah, but I think increasingly, and for a while now, most libraries, when they sign a contract for content, insist on the ability to.
Right. Well, even if you insist on the.
Sometimes you don't get it.
So it doesn't.
They always ask
I mean,
for it.
there's just a really recent article about journal content, not even going to e-books. Paul Karans and people that have been working on this for a long time.
But again, the technology isn't going to be the problem. You can build document delivery and fulfillment systems that will handle electronic resources, but it's the business side that's the limitation. It's a different animal between copyright and copyright law and contract law.
And there are differences between licenses for consortia and for individual libraries, which is.
That's right.
very-
And sometimes you have both. You'll have the same content available from the library, it's overlapped by a consortial agreement. Sometimes even at the statewide level, so they all probably have different versions.
Well, and when you speak, the bigger vendors kind of get it, although it's taken them a long time to get here. So when you speak with the smaller book vendors, they don't even know how to charge you, they don't even know how to do it, they're just working still their way around it, even though e-resources have been around for a long time. It's a model that they can't wrap their brain around it.
Downloadable ebooks are, that's a fairly recent one.
Yes.
But a lot of the issues are the same as when the databases licensing first came into play. It's a Wild West environment. The vendors trying to leverage access, so they get their revenue from, and libraries are trying to provide it as broadly as possible. And there's your intention there.
But if the library will choose this aggregator versus this one, based on one willing to let them share it and the other not, then there's value in being liberal about those as well. Because there's only a certain amount of leakage of content out of those databases through one. It's not going to save a university from subscribing to something because they need a few articles here and there from.
But with the databases too, I mean, libraries are used to paying subscription fees, sort of on an ongoing basis,
Right.
whereas with a monograph, you're used to, like, I bought it, I owned it, I owned it.
But even the inconsistency in pricing formulas, I mean, it's the same we've
Oh,
heard
yeah.
this song before.
Yeah. Yeah,
So,
so,
and if we bought the electronic database, or we'd have to print 3, whether we have.
Right.
I mean, it's all.
yeah, so all of that goes back to what I said about software. You're not buying software, you're using software as a service based on an annual fee. So content, it's just following the way content's gone.
Just like you're vending your books, we vend our email, our ebooks, and we're finding that 3 different vendors offer 3 different prices and 3 different models of simultaneous, single user, whatever. It's the same game.
And Douglas County has done a good job of kind of publishing those different.
So for us, it's a book is a book is a book. We choose our vendors the same way, you know, the best price, availability, et cetera, platform.
And Readers First is working on a consumer guide ebook.
Yeah, they've got some position papers and such they're working on there.
Readers First.
Readerfirst.org is the website.
Any more questions from Marshall? Well, we surely do thank you for coming, Marshall, and.
I'll sit and listen for the next part.
All right, great, very interesting presentation.